What was ruined for everybody by one person? This is local. There is a company that owns several hospitals in my area. They used to feed us, the ambulance crews, for free when we were on shift. You could eat at the cafeteria or take a sandwich to go or whatever. It was decent food, and hey, you're saving money, right? Well, one guy started coming in with his uniform on when he was off work and grabbing sandwiches and chips and drinks. You name it. Lots of it. Basically grocery shopping in the hospital cafeteria and taking it home with him. Needless to say, the hospital decided it wasn't going to supply us with food for our off day, so they stopped it altogether. I'll never understand why people will ruin a good thing. I'll never understand why people will ruin a good thing. They think they're cheating the system and think they are too smart to be caught, so it will keep working forever. They don't consider that there might be consequences. Well, that, or their buttholes who do it knowingly. In my first 2 years of high school, we were actually allowed to bring water or juice into class with us to drink. Then, in junior year, some bud decides to bring in a thermos of peppermint schnapps, somehow not thinking that everyone in the room can smell it. Drinks were banned after that. Water bottles or liquid containers at my high school's sporting events. An entire group of people brought vodka in water bottles to a football game. They didn't even go to the same high school as ours or the other team. The kid who jumped off of 7th floor of a building here in Turkey because he thought he was a Pokemon. They stopped airing the show because people thought it was bad influence on kids. And Pokemon was huge back when I was a kid, so pretty much every kid back then was devastated. But way too many of my little league baseball games were ruined by a parent acting like his or her kid was playing in the World Series. I am sorry, I thought this was America. There was a coffee shop that everyone loved that did the thing where if you buy 8 drinks, you get the next one for free. For 2 years I went there religiously at least once a week. Then one day, they told us that the stamp cards were no longer good because someone had stolen the stamp and had been abusing it by stamping their own cards. I just didn't like the accusatory tone when they explained to us what happened. I felt like I lost something that I made an effort to earn. Although only maybe 5/8 of one drink, and they were punishing the loyal customers. It was just terribly handled. I never went back after that. The once bustling coffee shop that everyone loved closed down 6 months later. Basically, they probably killed their business over one person who maybe got a few free drinks at most. That sucker who tried to take explosives on a plane by storing them in containers for liquids. I can deal with taking my shoes off. I freaking hate having to buy travel miniatures or decant stuff into smaller containers that I then jam into some tiny plastic see-through bag that has to be put through the scanner separately. Makes hand luggage only flights such a pain in the freaking ass. One of my father-in-law's co-workers supposedly ruined a pretty sweet perk for everyone. My Phil's a pilot for a large airline, and whenever they have to overnight away from their home base, the airline will put them up in a hotel. One of the hotel chains they use would give the airline crew a gift card for the hotel restaurant for each night they stayed there, valued at something like $5 or $10. After a few years of this, one of the pilots rented the restaurant of his local hotel for a wedding or some other kind of family gathering. After everyone had eaten well and it was time to pay the bill, he pulled out a huge stack of those $5 gift cards and paid the whole bill in full. A few days later, everyone at the company was informed that they would no longer receive gift cards when staying at that hotel chain. In college, my buddy threw a party with his roommates at their brand new condo. This place was really nice and they got a great deal. We were warned about 2 things. To be extra careful inside because of the white carpet, and that they had a 3-strike rule that if you had 3 party fouls, you're out. Some dude had 3 that very night. 1. Spilled beer on the white carpet. 2. Vomited on the white carpet. 3. Passed out on beer bong table and destroyed it. Everyone was asked to leave after that, and I don't blame them. Back when I was in grade 7, we had a field trip to this campsite place that used to be a part of the Underground Railroad. The trip was 5 days, and one optional activity was to reenact what it would have been like to use the railroad as an escaped slave. The people working there warned that it was realistic, and we had to sign a waiver saying we understood. The counselors worked at the slave owners and we had to escape from them as they chased us. We'd slip into the Underground Railroad and the activity was basically over. Some girls' parents sued the camp. The counselors would shout at us as we escaped to make it somewhat realistic. Real PG stuff. Worst was when they yelled something like, "Help, the Negros are escaping," which granted is a bit edgy. Well, according to the girl, the counselor threatened to whip the group, called them niggers, swore at them and all else beside. Since we were in groups of 5 and the other 4 girls refused to testify, they actually got away with some $5,000 settlement as they knew they couldn't prove that they didn't do anything that she said they did. The school no longer goes on field trips, which was a real pain in the butt for 8th and 9th grade. Thanks Sydney, UB. Thanks Sydney, UB. God, she even has a B name. On Halloween, 1974, an 8-year-old boy named Timothy O'Brien died. His candy had, indeed, been poisoned. A few days prior, his father, Ronald Clark O'Brien, took out a $40,000 life insurance policy on Timothy and Timothy's sister, Elizabeth, then age 5, as an unimaginable way to get out of debt. The only way to collect required that at least one of his children die, so the elder O'Brien laced some pixie sticks with cyanide and cajoled his son into eating one before bed. This is the source of the dangerous Halloween candy myth. Vacation at my work. We used to be able to roll over vacation and sell it, but now we can't do either. One guy misused his company credit card and they told him that he was going to have to pay for it. To pay them back, he just sold a bunch of his rolled over vacation. The next week everyone got a memo about the new vacation policies. Sounds like management didn't understand that unpaid vacation is basically equivalent to debt. He owed them a debt, they owed him one, and he cancelled them out. Seems perfectly reasonable to me. The kid at Pizza Hut who, while at the all-you-can-eat dessert bar, scooped chocolate mousse onto his plate, licked the serving spoon clean and then returned it straight into the mousse bowl. It was 20+ years ago, but that little sucker ruined the night for everyone at my table. Didn't know any of those things were a thing. A local one. One guy fell asleep at the wheel and drove into a park recently and ran over a young family, killing a child. There was a bunch of outrage over the road and how dangerous it was, completely ignoring that it's been this way for 40+ years without this happening and the park not having a barrier between the expressway and the park. Cuss, it'd be ugly. The result was an order from the governor to reduce speed from 55 miles per hour to 30 miles per hour for the entire length, instead of the section where it actually runs along the park where a barrier has now been erected. One place I worked had a cafeteria where bread slices were .10 and butter, peanut butter, and jelly were free, so I would occasionally make a good PB&J sandwich for .20 until a co-worker got the word and started making 4 inches thick PB&J sandwiches every day and bragging about it only being .20. Well, that lasted about a week until the price of bread was raised to .25 per slice and butter, peanut butter, and jelly were raised to 1.00 each. A redditor a while back posted about how his company allowed unused vacation time to roll over indefinitely. His co-worker worked for 10 years straight without using any vacation time and then took an entire year off, completely paid. I am surprised the employee would do that. No good scenario can come from this. Either leave for a year and nothing happens and the boss realized he doesn't need said employee, or leave for a year and all heck breaks loose and you are in a heap of trouble. Back in the Middle Ages when I was a child in Detroit, the electric company gave out free light bulbs. You kept the burned out ones in a bag, and when it was full dad would take it to Detroit Edison and exchange them for free ones. Then some guy who owned a store, I remembered it as a pharmacy, sued because he couldn't sell light bulbs and that was the end of free light bulbs. Dang, what a dong. Rosie O'Donnell ruined the plot of Fight Club the Monday after it opened on live television, ignoring the first rule of Fight Club. Good thing there isn't a lot of overlap between the people who'd watch Fight Club and those who'd watch her show. I didn't see it until the DVD release and managed to not hear about the twist. We had to take showers after PE in middle school. We had to leave our towels in the bin right outside the showers because of an incident. Don't read if you have a weak stomach. Do you know the skin of the scrotum isn't very thick and tears easily? One kid whipped his towel at another kid as they were drying off and caught him right on the sack. It split it open, blood and screaming. So yeah, we weren't allowed to handle towels any more than absolutely necessary. I felt the government was taking away our weapons. One of my biggest fears in 5th grade was having to take a shower in front of other dudes in middle school. I think the first time I felt anxiety was at age 11, and the relief I felt after I found out that showers weren't a thing. It was like getting an A on a test you hadn't studied for. We had to get rid of all of the hooks on the bathroom stalls in elementary school because a kid at a different school hung a smaller kid by his shirt and watched him die. Being in college at the time, real for Locus. Some girl out in eastern Washington state decided to drink something like 2 4 Locus, 6 tequila shots, and funnel a bunch of beers. She died of alcohol poisoning. They still make 4 Locus on the caffeine, which are less fun. Let's be honest, we all ruined 4 Locus. The first bonehead kid to fall out of a backseat window in a car. Now if I'm riding in a backseat, my window only goes halfway down. It's bulls. The dang Jehovah's Witness kid that ruined our elementary school class from acknowledging and celebrating birthdays and holidays. My class would send the Jehovah's Witnesses to the front office and wait while we celebrated birthdays or even just sung holiday songs. It really sucked for those kids though because they really just wanted to be a part of everything. Not their fault their parents chose a boring religion. In 7th grade, I was lab partners with this really strange, we're talking middle school strange, which probably equates to grown up awesome, girl, who had an infatuation with our Bunsen burner. One day, she turned the gas output on the burner way too high and singed off 75% of her eyebrows, 42% of her bangs, and 100% of the teacher's cool. For the rest of the year, lab experiments were banned. 100% of the teacher's cool. Guess the burner heated her up. Vaccines. Dr. Former Andrew Wakefield, may his name go down in infamy, Wakefield's study and his claim that the MMR vaccine might cause autism led to a decline in vaccination rates in the United States, United Kingdom and Ireland and a corresponding rise in measles and mumps, resulting in serious illness and deaths. And his continued warnings against the vaccine have contributed to a climate of distrust of all vaccines and the re-emergence of other previously controlled diseases. Frick that guy with a chainsaw. He was only bashing those vaccines so he could promote his own. Was at a Marilyn Manson concert a few years ago. It was a few days after he collapsed on stage in Saskatchewan. My friend and I went to Vancouver for the concert, and we were there about 4 or 5 hours beforehand. We wandered around the building and found out that the venue we were at didn't have a parking garage, meaning his tour bus was in plain view. So a couple hours pass and we're sitting around and a small crowd of like 10 or 15 people hoping to get to see him up close and maybe get an autograph. I've done this before. Works like 65% of the time. Lots of peeps dudettes came and went but my friend and a few other peeps others stayed. Finally about 2 hours before the concert he comes out of his tour bus with a couple bodyguards. He stops for a second, my friend and I collectively almost pee ourselves. Not 5 seconds later a douchebag grunty little bastard comes running up with a big fancy paparazzi camera and asks how are you feeling Manson in the most dickish condescending voice I've ever heard and tries to go after him. Cue a bunch more security come rushing out, surround Manson and rush him into the building. 3 hours waiting just for one little prick to ruin everything. He took off pretty quickly right after. TLDR. We were stalking Marilyn Manson before a concert and a little prick with a camera scared him away. Edit. He ran away before someone was able to get his camera away from him. For context, he was obviously some amateur photographer. He was probably younger than we were. We were only 18 at the time. After we were talking to another girl who was there, still hoping that the kid hadn't completely fricked up our chances of getting to meet Marilyn Manson. And that kid had pulled that stunt at previous concerts at that location. We still had a lot of fun at the concert. We would have went to see if he was around afterwards. That's usually the best time to get an autograph in my experience anyway. Except the concert went on longer than we thought it would and we had to catch the ferry back to Vancouver Island. We ended up missing it anyway and had to sleep in the ferry terminal. Totes worth it in our eyes. My mom's friend that accompanied us to Vancouver was a little pee off though. This guy sounds like the paparazzi guy from GTA V. That guy who attempted a shoe bomb back in 2001 on the flight from France to Miami. Now we all have to suffer taking our shoes off at airport security every dang time we fly. It's the C who pretended to have a Die Hard 3 liquid bomb I hate. Now I can't even take a bottle of pop through customs in case I've filled it with a mythical liquid that only exists in movies, leaving me no choice but to buy overpriced drinks on the other side. The back pass rule in soccer. The back pass rule prohibits the goalkeeper from handling the ball when a teammate has deliberately kicked the ball to him, or handling the ball directly from a teammate's throw-in. A general rethink about the laws of the game had been promoted by the negativity of the 1990 World Cup and, in particular, one passage of play in the group match between the Republic of Ireland and Egypt in which the Irish keeper Paki Bonner held the ball for almost 6 minutes without releasing it. Pretty sure a rapist sailor just ruined drinking in Japan for the entire navy. That sucker that was working from home. He was outside cutting grass and work called. His kid answered and told his boss he was outside. Man, we have one friend in our group who perpetually, and by total mistake, ruins the fun for everyone. We've all been friends since at least high school and most of you have just graduated college. Needless to say, we've had a metric fuckton of adventures together. Long story boring. Keith has managed to get himself kicked out of every freaking bar we've ever set foot in. The worst part? Keith isn't obnoxious or deserving of it. Our crew has a theory that because Keith is honestly really weird looking and super clumsy, bar staff think he's the creepy drunk who needs to go. It just sucks. Our bar adventures usually end with a confused, drunk, crying Keith and a group of half-drunk 20-somethings looking to keep the party going. My middle school wasn't allowed to play dodgeball anymore because some kid hurt his pinky and his mom threatened to sue. When I started high school, one of the major things I was looking forward to was off-campus lunch. I had seen it in movies, on TV, heard family members talk about all the fun they had eating off campus. This was going to be a highlight of my school time. Imagine my surprise when I found out that we were not allowed to leave school for lunch because 10 years prior, two dipshits from a different school on the other fricking side of my city came back from lunch drunk and got it banned for the entire district. LSD, strangely enough by Timothy Leary. At first there was a great deal of institutional openness to the idea that amazing new things were possible with the drug. But then one of its leading proponents just started getting goofier and goofier. Leary was a professor at Stanford and was highly respected, but when he started talking about things like giving LSD to kindergartners and eventually got to reprogramming your DNA and other such nonsense, other respectable people decided the stuff was super dangerous and could make you crazy. In-N-Out Burger in California used to have a policy that if you forgot your wallet, they'd just give you the food you ordered for free, since they have to make everything fresh. After a certain group of individuals forgot their wallets every day, for several weeks, the policy was forever changed. I remember in middle school there was this kid that had major food allergies. His mother complained to the school board about the food options that were offered in the cafeteria. As a result, all of the good cookies were banned from the cafeteria while I was there. Our platoon boot camp picture. We had to unblouse our boots and leave our collars up like idiot first phase recruits for that photo as punishment for one of our recruits stepping a single foot outside of the barber shop exit without immediately putting his collar down on picture day. FML. Out of all the other idiots running out the exit in front of me, I got caught and blamed. Spoiler warning if you haven't read the Harry Potter books. The weekend the 6th Harry Potter book came out, a friend from university went to a music festival where there was, unsurprisingly, a massive viewing screen. Scrolling along the bottom were CNN-style messages that people could text direct to the screen. My friend, a notorious practical joker, texted Snape kills Dumbledore, and moments later, it rolled across the screen. By all accounts, the collective scream of horror was a thing to behold. You can tell this is real because even now you felt the need to put a spoiler warning on one of the most known spoilers on the internet. It's probably only beaten out by No, I Am Your Father. I worked for a company that had a tradition of working 45 hours one week and 35 hours the next week, resulting in an 80-hour pay period with every other Friday off. One co-worker looked up the state regulations and complained that we were owed time and a half for the extra 5 hours in the first week. The company responded by reducing everyone's pay so that with the 5 hours of overtime, Our take home was the same. It had no net effect as long as you worked the full 45 hours, otherwise, your pay rate went down. Before the high security after 9/11, kids used to be able to go into the cockpit of planes, meet the pilot and co-pilot, and then get little wing pins. Last time I flew I got to do all of that. I'm 21. In 1964 Jack Sears drove his Shelby Cobra Coupe GT at 184 miles per hour on the M1 motorway in the UK to do a high-speed test run before the Le Mans 24 hours. 3 years later, the 70 mile per hour speed limit was introduced. It isn't absolute fact that Sears caused the limit to be introduced, but many believe his actions influenced it. I was in rehab and this one dongbag would put 6 bags of chamomile tea in his cup so we would run out of chamomile and the facility refused to restock. The same butthole was also responsible for the facility taking away Rice Krispie cereal, which we used to make microwavable Rice Krispie treats and was one of the only activities we looked forward to at snack time. Frick, he also was the culprit who used all of the chocolate syrup in one day so we were not allowed chocolate milk any longer. Frick that guy. Andrew Wallstrom. The reason Iowa banned fireworks is a fire in Spencer in 1931 caused by some boys or the store clerk. Wallstrom. Accounts differ. Lighting a sparkler and accidentally dropping it on the display of tons of other fireworks. The resulting explosion burned down most of downtown Spencer. The irony? Fireworks are still banned except for novelty items like snakes, bang snaps, and the original cause of the fire, sparklers. Depends on who you blame, Timberlake or Janet Jackson. The exposing of the nipple definitely ignited a shitstorm and changed not just the halftime show for the Super Bowl, but television and censorship in general. But, by some accounts, inspired YouTube. I worked in a mall food court downtown throughout high school and college that had its own pay-to-park parking garage. All of the food vendors in the parking garage folks had a super secret not so secret system where any of the parking employees can get a free meal anywhere in exchange for free parking for food court employees. It worked out perfectly for everyone involved since parking was $8 for the day and a meal is around $8 anyway. This went on for 2 years until some stupid bee at Panda Express had to go blabbing to the actual president of the parking garage company about how she didn't have to pay for parking because everyone just gave the parking employees food whenever. President person then installed cameras in the parking attendant booth, fired 90% of the staff and everyone had to pay to park from now on. Stupid bee at Panda lost her job like a month later anyways. $8 a day to park adds up, especially in the summer when you're working 6-7 days a week. Fortunately I also attended the university that was 2 miles away so I just parked there with my pass and walked to work, but I'll never forgive that Panda Express girl. A dude at my university had unlimited guest swipes on his meal plan. He and the dining hall ladies, they didn't give a crap, abused this by letting everyone that came through the door get free meals. This cost the dining company thousands of dollars. The next year, unlimited guest swipes were eradicated from every meal plan. Hitler ruined the swastika for everybody. It was around long before the Nazis and was pretty much agreed to be a cool looking symbol. Some people using it for good luck. Now it's been stolen from society and nobody can use it ever again, even though it used to appear everywhere. A shame really. That shape is pretty dang aesthetically pleasing. Don't know where you live, but my town has a decent sized Jain and Hindu population and public swastikas are not unheard of. The local Mandava Hindu temple even has one on their sign. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.